I'm going to show you how traction control can work for you and what all of these squiggly lines mean when you're talking about traction control. How I almost lost my leg to nitrous. Alrighty, we are back from racing and driving this thing to New Mexico. This thing has got over 2,000 miles on it. We just drove and just got back last night at 7 p.m. Don't forget, for every $5 purchased on merchandise off our merchandise site, you get an entry to win this 1,000 horsepower at the tire, nitrous assisted turbocharged LS. Go to the website and you'll see all the information on this thing and links directly to the merchandise site. $5 purchased, entry. Make sure you do it. Now, back to the video. So this is what happened. When we were at Mocan Dragway, I was getting a bottle refilled and I reached down and grabbed the bottle and I just twisted it when I picked it up like this. This bottle was aimed at my leg, and when I went like this, these nitrous express valves open up fast. And I went just like this. For some reason, just twisted it, and nitrous stream went from right here through my pant leg, blew that up, went just like this from about that far away and burned my leg. This is actually healed up pretty nice. And so this is frostbite, I guess. And it's interesting because it doesn't feel like a burn. It feels like a bruise. It feels like somebody hit this with a bat or something, because I mean, it's sore. So I got antibiotic on it and got bandage on it. But you can see the next morning, I woke up and there was obviously just blistered all up. Nitrous can hurt you. Be careful. Don't be willy-nilly and just grabbing stuff and doing things and thinking it's not that big a deal. It can hurt. All right, so we had 47 passes on this car, a couple thousand miles on this car, flawless. So watch this real quick. And if you want to stick around to the whole end, you can see the whole highlights of all the drive too. So you might be asking, this thing makes 1,000 horsepower as a tire. Why is it not going faster? This Blazer does not have a roll cage in it. So since it does not have a roll cage in it, it is only legal to go 736 in the 1/8 mile or 1150 in a 1/4 mile. Since we were 1/8 mile racing, I had to put the smack down and totally dominate Tom Bailey in his 736 Ram Charger. So I'm going to show you how we made that all happen with traction control. So I'm going to show you pass 1 with a traction control enabled. Now, let me show you the pass real quick, and then I'll show you how I set everything all up. All right, so you saw the pass. You saw that the thing is on the traction control immediately. So pop, 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 pop. Let me show you exactly all that I did. All right, so first off, in the Holley system, you're gonna turn on the your traction control ICF, okay? Now, let me show you how you all work this. You call up Holley, you say, I wanna buy the traction control ICF. They go, okay, cool, you pay them. They give you a code via email. Now, walk you right through this whole thing. You're gonna have the setup screen. You're gonna download your ICF. Your ICF is gonna be up here. It's gonna put this little block up here with the 2 skid marks. You enter your key code right here in the box. Then that's all done there, okay? So then you're going to your maximum drive shaft speed for activation. Now, what I had to do on the Trailblazer here is I used the 4L80E information that is being automatically fed into the ECU instead of having a reluctor ring or a magnetic flying magnet ring on the drive shaft. Okay, so I just used the 4L80E programming that's already there. Now, the only thing that does is that makes it run in a mile per hour versus RPM. So it's not, doesn't have the same exact resolution, but it's pretty darn good. And I'll show you that. All right, so you enter your key in there. Now we go to drive shaft. Now on drive shaft, it basically, you're gonna open up a, it's gonna basically look like this. This is just some kind of default screen, okay? Now, what we need to do is, this is a primary thing, all right? A primary thing is that you need to have some kind of pass in order to duplicate. That is the key deal. You need to have something to start with, otherwise you're just totally guessing, all right? I happen to have the perfect pass for this car, which was a 736 with a 1 at 100 mile an hour. That was a perfect pass. That was exactly what the index called for the Trailblazer at the time, all right? So we had run that previously without traction control by sheer flat out luck. 100% luck, but it was on a better track. So as we went to the worst tracks, which was Albuquerque, just because it's 7,500 feet, so the car is running totally different. And Roswell, which is also 6,500 or 7,000 feet. That's DA number, so way high altitude. The car doesn't make as much horsepower as it does. So I had to turn everything up in order to get to even make it run even close to the pass. And when I did that, I thankfully had a good pass to start with. So let me show you how you do that. Now here is your blanket screen. Now there are different modes here. There's the rev limit, retard A, retard B, and your base. All right. The first thing you need to do is, I happen to have my 736 pass. This was my perfect 736 pass with no traction control. You can see right here, this is my drive shaft speed and how that, let me widen this out just a little bit here for you. This right here was it actually spinning on the 1-2 gear change. Now, I was only in high gear because this truck is not an 8th mile racer of any extent. So it was set up, it was just making the 2-3 gear change at a lower RPM, only 6,600, 6,700 RPM at 7 seconds, and at 7.36 it was already done with the pass. Okay, so it had just made the 2-3 gear change at the end of the track. All right, so this is a good pass. So we had that open. I've saved it. We go to import log file. That log has to be open. Bing. Now it's going to ask me, how do I want it? Now, since it only has availability of transmission speed, which is mile per hour, we have to select that. On yours, it might have, if you have a reluctor ring and you have it on drive shaft, it's going to be, you're going to select RPM. All right, so let's select that. All right. Now, there was the drive shaft speed in mile an hour on that 736 pass. All right, that is exactly what the transmission did. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight down here. I'm going to need to make my base. Okay, so my base, I'm going to highlight there. Just click on the drive shaft curve. I am going to copy to rev limit. No, I want to offset. So what I did is I offset to rev limit. It asks you how much you want to offset that by. Well, I want it to be, let's just say, since this is in mile per hour, remember, so it gets a little confusing. I want it 1 mile an hour or 2 mile an hour over. So let's just say 2. All right. So 2 mile an hour over. It has now put that line, that red line, right up above. All right. And when I highlight it, you'll see it with dots. So that is exactly 1 mile an hour or 2 mile an hour over my drive shaft, previous drive shaft curve. All right, now let's do that. Now my rev limit, I'm sorry, my rev retard A, I'm just gonna do the same thing. Go over here, highlight, click it. I'm gonna offset retard A. That one I only want to be 1. All right, and actually I did this in 2. So that's, now you see the blue dots there. That is my retard A. Now let's go up to retard B. And this one actually will make like 1.5. Now in RPM, that's much easier to do a more accurate, more resolution. That's why it's a little harder to do in here, but I'll show you how well it actually works. It's pretty phenomenal. And then we already have, oh, and I don't have my base up there yet. So this is the base. So this is gonna forever be the base. Now it does no correction off the base, but this base will now be open all the time. And that one, I'm just going to copy to. So that will make it exactly the same. All right, now let's go up here to my rev limit. And actually, I need to make a little correction because I did that at 3. So on my rev limit, I actually did at 3. So I apologize. I'm going to correct that to 3. So I'm just going to add 1. There we go. Okay. Now, if I go, now I'm also, this is a little bit trickier part too, because we can also do this rev limit and retard based off of crankshaft acceleration too, as a secondary system. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to import that log file. That's what the engine RPM did. Okay, right through there. Very cool. So I'm going to come back in here, do the same thing. I'm going to offset rev limit. I'm going to do this one now is RPM. So this is engine RPM, all right? I'm going to do this by like 300 RPM. See how that's all there? Now you see this little deal right here? We need to correct that, otherwise it sometimes would run into it. Same thing over here. If the shift delayed and this was down here, it would actually physically hit the rev limiter as it crossed that red line. So if it was a little bit slower or for any reason it didn't follow this exact curve, it would have hit the rev limiter and caused all sorts of problems. I did that exact thing. Do this one, which is now my retard A. We're going to make 100 RPM. Then B, we're going to make 200 RPM. Now these are just general numbers. You can fine tune this stuff. There's all sorts of ways of fine tuning. You can change it, make it however you want. I'm giving you some good basic guidelines of how to do this. And then we make our copy to base. Right, now I need to change that. You can see that it kind of messes that up just a little bit. I'm going to run that out right there. Now the base does not make any changes. This is just physically your base deal. Okay? Because when I click out of here and go back, now all you see is my retard lines. That is my baseline without having to re-import the file. If I import the file again, there's the actual pass with those little dots. We can highlight there a little bit. There we go. All right. So now this is how we've just set this up. That little spot where it spun on the 1-2 gear change, and actually spun just a little bit over here on the 2-3 gear change also, according to the drive shaft curve. On the crankshaft curve, it did not. Our engine RPM didn't see anything. All right. Oh, there it is. The engine RPM didn't see anything. No spikes, nothing weird going on there at all. Perfectly normal. All right, so now we have just set up a base curve. So the base curve has been set up based on my base, which was a really good pass. In fact, it was the perfect pass. All right, now let me show you how this happens. So now let's pretend I click out of everything. Everything's gone. You see the actual drive shaft and crankshaft curves are gone. These are just the timing control limits. Okay, let me show you what happened on that very first pass. We'll go back and we will open up our data log. I saved it. And saved it as track 1. Track 1. All right. Now, this is what it did. All right, so this is that very first pass that I made with the base curve that I put into it for traction control. Now, you see, here it is, and let's get this open just a little bit farther. This is the two-step. This right here, boom, is where I let go of the trans brake button because it goes to a timing retard curve. So first thing we got to do is we got to set up the 0 for our timer. The previous video, or I'm sorry, the previous log, the 736 log, I had already set up 0. That's the moment I let go of the two-step button, or basically took off. So I'll set up this time at 0. That's where I took off at. You can see that there. Now, these blue lines, this is what's interesting. These blue lines are rev limit. All right, so let's get rid of there. You can see the drive shaft curve is really jaggedy through here. All right, and even had a little bit of a pedal there because it sounded so bad, and it was on the rev limiter so hard right through here. How do I know it was on the rev limiter? Let me bring up the drive shaft timing offset, which is basically the rev limiter. It was on the rev limiter this entire time. All right, until I just said that's enough. It just doesn't sound good. I'm just not going to run it out. But you can see that it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It was controlling my drive shaft RPM speed, mile per hour, which is right here. Now let's widen this out a little bit. There we go. All right. So here it's under control. Here it's hitting the rev limiter and timing offset. So not good. It was controlling. It was working. It was working exactly as intended. Would I want to run it there all the time? I don't want to run an engine on a rev limiter ever. So what I wanted to do, and I heard it, I could feel it, even though it was doing exactly what it was supposed to do, I heard it and felt it and said, that's enough, I just can't do it. I said that in the video when I ran it. All right, so you can see these are the rev limits as it's hitting because it's going past the drive shaft curve. I will show you here also the timing is really going crazy because it's doing the same thing. It's hitting rev limit and it's hitting all of the timing functions. So it hits the timing retards first, and if it drives through the timing, I'll show you that here in a minute, then it goes up all the way up to the rev limit, which means it's really crazy, and then it's doing a lot to stop it. And it basically will stop the engine RPM with the rev limiter. The rev retard is trying to slow it down, but the rev limit is stopping it. Okay? So you can see here, let me get rid of this thing. This is our timing. It is all over because it is super angry and super upset. I mean, this thing went all the way down to down here. We're at negative 0.01 timing. It was so far off and so much it drove all the way through both timing retards, drove all the way through there. All right, the one other thing I should need to show you here. As we scroll down, this is the retard above the limit. So I have this set up at retard A because I was trying to hit it really hard. If it hits that retard A, it's going to take 6 degrees of timing out of it. If it hits retard B, it's going to take an additional 10 degrees out of it. All right. If it goes past both of those and hits the red line, so here's the blue line, the little green line is just slightly above it. If it hits that red line, then it hits the rev cut. All right, so now let's bring in that first log file. It's open. Bring it in. You can see right there. It just drove right through it. The dots are all the way up above there. We can correlate that is at about 0.65 seconds. You can see it right up here. All right, 0.65 seconds. Go back to our data log right here. Bing. Yep, that whole time right through there. If you look up in this corner right here, the time, it first fired it at 0.5652, started rev limiting 6.5, 7.4, and then it's just on it pretty much continuously here. And then really out here, it's just all over it. Because, let's go back here. It is, you see how it is up into the red dots? It's all the way past my little lines. It's all the way past. It is riding right directly on the rev limiter. Then hits the rev limiter there. Doesn't hit it here. Just barely tickles it up there in the top, right up through those areas. So it is driven through the, it has taken out all the timing and has actually hit the rev limiter and worked phenomenally well. Now, let's look at our crankshaft. We'll import it, and you can see the exact same thing. Here, the crankshaft is also adding to it. So if it goes to the crankshaft side, I did the same thing. I was taking 5 degrees out, 8 degrees out if it hit the crankshaft retard. So it is all adding on top of each other, all doing it all together at the same time. So it's retarding timing, retarding timing, retarding timing, hit the rev limiter, hit the rev limiter. And so it is all over the place. And that is why it looks like this. Now, this is not good. I don't want to continue to run it like this because it could hurt the engine. Running engines on the rev limiter, I don't care what anybody says, is not good for the engine. Down track, just bop, 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 running on the rev limiter. It was saving it. It was fixing it. So what I then did was like, okay, now I come back and I'm going to make some changes to my tune-up. Now I know that I have too much power because I'm index racing. I know that I don't want to exceed the good drive shaft curve that I have in the system. I don't want to exceed that crankshaft line. I don't RPM line, and I don't want to exceed my base right there. I don't want to exceed that right there. I don't want to exceed that line. All right, because I know that that drive shaft line makes a 736 at 100 mile an hour pass, period. If it followed it perfect, it would make that pass every single time. So what I did is I came back, I took a little bit of power out of it, a little bit of boost out of it, so I could try to keep it just on the line, but not driving all the way through it. So let's open up the next log that I did on that next pass, which is track 2. All right, you saw it. What was it?
34.
734 with a 4. I have to go 736 with a 0. So very close. Now you can see, and I just trusted it. I just trusted what my tune-up was. Just stayed in. I heard it pop up a couple times. Let me show you the timing offset rev cut. So remember all those blue before? Now it was just right here. So this is my new 0 for the second pass. Now you can see I still have the traction control rev limit up, so you can see it where it is. Much nicer. Still killed it right here, but immediately saved the pass. If we look right there closely, it takes off, it launches, and all of a sudden it starts spinning the tire, and it spun the tire so fast that it started taking timing out, but it went immediately past it and started hitting the rev limiter, which was fine. It saved it. Then it brought it back down. This is my timing line. Then up here, it started running up into the rev retard. I'll show you that in a second. And only hit the rev limiter once. And then way out here, hit the rev limiter, but that's just because it spun the tire on the 2-3 gear change. All right, now we got this saved under 0 time. We'll minimize this. Now let's overlay that one and see what that one looks like. Now we can see exactly what we said. Went up and hit the rev limiter a couple times right here. Then it brought it down. Was happy, was just there. Got a little crazy here. That's the other spot that it hit the rev limiter because it hit that red dot. Then brought it back down, right up through here. It didn't hit the red line quite yet. It was just taking some timing out. Otherwise, followed this perfectly all the way out. This pass here is the pass I went 734 with a 9. I have to go 736. So it was just a tick fast, and I knew it was just a tick fast because it came out here and rode the rev limiter too hard. All right, got it? So now I go, okay, it is hitting too hard right here. I need to take some more power out of it and try to get it just off the rev retard. I'm gonna let it hit it just in case. I don't want to have it hit the rev limiter, so I'm just trying to continue to make sure that it does whatever power-wise it needs to in order to follow the correct curve. All right, so let's look at the second one again. We had this much, and I could hear and feel this quite a bit. I'm letting go of the button. This is all before the 60 foot, and it's going pop, 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 pop. Takes off, it hunkers down, and then all of a sudden it starts spinning. Pop, 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 pop. Gets right through there. All right, now let's look over here. Let's go to our crankshaft and see what that one looks like. Because we're controlling it off of both, okay? The crankshaft one was pretty nice all the way up until here, where the crankshaft speed was starting to accelerate faster. That's why it went through the rev limiter here, was for crankshaft speed, not drive shaft speed. Well, drive shaft speed it was a little bit, but not as much as the engine speed. All right. So we can see where things are getting affected at, how things are getting affected, and what's going on. So I go in, I make some power changes. I want to take a little bit less here, a little bit less there. Now this is all to run a exact number, all right, which is really interesting. All right, so then we come down, and now I'm playing the game of trying to make it follow that exact curve, and the air is getting worse as the day is going on. It was started out at 3,500 foot, now it's 6,500 foot. I think it ended up at 7,500 foot of air, so the air's getting worse, so I have to figure out how to add power, but not add too much power, and it's cluster cuss. So, and when we're trying to run an exact number, all right? So now we're gonna go look at our other file, which is track 3. Open dialog. Track 3. Open. Yep. All right, let's set our 0. Like you see here, I was able to hold it on the 2-step longer, and it was a little more consistent here. Set my 0 time. Yes. Now you can see it just had one time. Bink. It just caught it, brought it back down, and then I'm riding through any of the timing controls. This is all rev retard A or rev retard B, hitting spots, trying to control wheel speed through here. These little spots right here, whoop, whoop. This is actually where I was hitting the nitrous button. So I was hitting the nitrous down track because I knew that it only hit the rev cut once. I couldn't feel it lay over. Everything sounded great, looked great, and I thought, I better hit it. I'm gonna go psh, and just hit it, make sure that I didn't want to be too slow. What happens? 725. Because I hit the nitrous button right here. Whoops. And right there. So I hit the manual override button right there and right there. All right, my fault. I should have just trusted it and let it go. It probably would have been perfect. So you can see here, very interesting how this works. I saved that. Let me bring it up here. Import this log on the drive shaft curve as my primary one that I want to look at. You can see exactly what it did. It did hit right here. Up, up. One time. Knocked it down. I could feel it was a little bit off. See how much down lower it is? It's off right here. All right. Then through here, it makes the gear change. Spun a little bit on the gear change, which that's probably pretty normal. It has been normal. And because it was down a little bit on drive shaft speed here, when it made the gear change, it tends to overshoot even more. So the drive shaft wasn't spinning as fast. And when it made the gear change, it still had all the same power. So it spiked the tire up just a little bit more, which made it do this. And then it never really ran all the way through and up there on the same curve, but I hit the nitrous button a couple times and it still ends up going faster. So really interesting stuff here of how you do that, but that is the basics of how this traction control can work. And for you, is there a lot more to it? Can you do a lot more things? Everything at this point is now, well, you can see right through here, it RPM'd up, started spinning the tire right there, got up into it, bang. Now you can see the engine RPM. Nitrous, boop. Nitrous, boop. Ran out the back door, just slightly faster, even though, and I think the ET was slightly faster, even though the mile per hour was down. I think it only went like 96 mile an hour on this one, but it still went 725. Faster, quicker, but not faster. It is really complicated to talk about speed versus quickness in this, but this was a quicker pass, even though it was a slower pass. How about that? So anyways, long story short, we ended up, if I had even more time, we could have figured this out even more fine-tuned, and figured out exactly with my nitrous bottle pressure, all that other stuff. And so let me tell you about the nitrous stuff now. Let's talk about the nitrous. Lots of stuff. Everything is trial and error, but you at least understand. You build a little timing wall right here. If the drive shaft curve goes past it, it takes however much timing you want out. If it goes past that, it goes up to the next line, takes even more timing out. And if it goes past that, it'll go to the rev cut, ignition cut, rev limiter, which I don't want it to hit, but it does a really fantastic job of saving it. I was dead on surprised how good a job it did saving it. You can hear that in, when I made those passes. I said to come in and go, holy cow, I can't believe how good this thing actually worked. I don't like doing that. The whole goal is to make it not do that, to figure out the power to make it not do that. That's what the traction control is there for. Save your bacon, not so you ride on it the whole time. Okay. Now, over to the nitrous side of it, I have not even, this Blazer has been flat out perfect. We drove this from Missouri all the way to Roswell, New Mexico, racing it so many passes, round robin, hot lapping it, doing the whole deal, trying to figure it all out. And this thing has been perfect. And then we drove it from New Mexico all the way back to Missouri after the event was over. And then we loaded it up on a truck and trailer and drove it the rest of the way. This thing has just been flawless. 2,000 some odd miles, nitrous hits, boost, overshooting, the whole shebang is just flawless. Remember, you can win this entire Trailblazer. For every $5 purchased on our merch site, gets an entry to win this thing. And if you don't see something that you want there on the merch site right now, don't get discouraged. Buy one of the gift cards, because you can come in. We're going to have different color shirts, different things throughout the rest of this year and in the next year. You can use it for Christmas gift, Christmas card, whatever, you can do a lot of stuff, but buy the gift card. If you don't see something you want right this minute, we have new stuff coming up and you can use the gift card, use it for entries to win this and still get stuff later on down the road. So I have not even unloaded it. This is how we load this thing all up. I got 2 scooters in here, about nitrous bottles, the spare nitrous bottle, tools, jack, the spare wheels and the drag radial tires. Super cool stuff. All right. Things I learned about nitrous. I went into this thing totally unprepared. I did not have any intention of racing this thing so aggressively with Bailey, but Bailey comes in, gives me a little bit of trash talking, and it's like, oh yeah, really? Yeah, all right, now it's on. All right, whatever. So then it's competition. Then we're going back and forth, but it was a great time. Loved it. Glad that I won by 0.003 of a second. So we were when we went into the last day, I was 1.2 thousandths, so 10 thousandths of a second behind him. And we ended for the day, I was 3 thousandths of a second average better than him. So our index was 736. We couldn't run any faster than 736 with a 0. My average for the 6-day average was 739 with a 9, or no, with a 6. 739 with a 6, and Bailey's was 736. I'm sorry, 739 with a 9. There you go. He was 3 thousandths of a second behind me. And he did a great job foot braking it and doing his whole deal, even though he cried about foot braking, and I had a laptop and blah, 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 and I had traction control, blah, blah, blah. He had a locked out Motec system that he couldn't touch. I'm just saying. Things I learned about nitrous, all right? These things, outside of burning the crap out of your leg if you accidentally, like an idiot, open up the bottle wrongly. Anyways, burn you. Yes, it will hurt you. It could probably do a lot of damage. Second thing is, if you want this thing to work really well, if you hit a brand new bottle, and I'd kind of forgotten this because I used to race nitrous cars way 20 plus years ago, but FYI, brand new bottle, it always hits harder and then drops off a little bit and then comes back. The second hit seems to be really nice and consistent. and it just stays right at pressure basically and drops down nice. Third hit seems to be good. Fourth hit probably pretty good, and then it starts deteriorating. Even though you have the same bottle pressure, start out with the same bottle pressure, there is a volume deal there where it has a bunch of pressure, 1,000 pounds of pressure, 950 pounds of pressure. But if the bottle is half empty, it does not have the same charge. How did I know this too? Is interesting that because I didn't have a purge set up on this, I was actually purging it into the engine. So you can do this, okay? You can't purge like 5 kits into an engine, but while in neutral, idling, I hit the nitrous button, hitting 100 shot to it. That's all we were spraying to this, okay? It was just to get it out of the hole. Hit the 100 shot, and the engine goes, revs up. I noticed this as I was doing it because I don't have a heater blanket. I didn't have any way of watching the pressure until the last day when I finally got a gauge for it. I didn't have any way of doing any of that stuff, so I was totally just guessing at it. But the one thing that I could always tell was new bottle with pressure, 3,300. And then as my bottle pressure decreased, and as I did get a gauge on it and I was maintaining pressure, I noticed that as the bottle got less, my little purging into the engine was from 3,300 to 2,800, then 2,600. And then when it went down and it only went to like 23, 2,200, when I purged into it, it was a turd. It wouldn't take off. So bottle pressure, key. Bottle being full, key. Bottle not being over full, key. All the things that if we were just flat out heads up racing, we would figure out and we would know. When you're index racing, a nitrous oxide assisted turbo Trailblazer, it is really hard to get everything all managed together. So anyways, I hope you guys like this video. If you like the video, help support us by buying some merch, doing all that kind of stuff. That does help us do this kind of content where I'm showing you how to do traction control, how not to burn your leg on nitrous, how to keep bottle pressure up, what it does when the bottle pressure goes down, what it does when you got full bottle versus a half full bottle. It is not the same. Even though the pressure is the same, it is not the same, period. So anyways, like, subscribe, go buy some merch, help support the channel. I appreciate all you guys, and don't forget, this is one bad Blazer to win. Anybody can drive it, even a camera guy. Easy. You know that scene where Lightning McQueen just does a half-butt job of paving the road? That is based on that story right back there. Right there. Look at all that.
Lightning McQueen.
Lightning McQueen paved that. Tom has called it. We have gone 7:39, and we have taken over the win. Tom has bailed out. He's called it. We only have half an hour left, actually 20 minutes left, and it just stopped raining a little bit. So, I'm pretty happy to win nothing on something that totally doesn't matter.
To be in the second page of standings.
Yeah,
of a
the
two-man
second
race.
page of standings. I didn't even win the class. I think his name's Darslaws. Forgive me if I mispronounced your name. I think it was Darslaws. Anyways, cool dude in a station wagon. He was dead on it every time. He's so far ahead of us, we weren't able even to catch up with him, but we weren't ever trying. It was just between me and Bailey. And there was other people in here that were just racing each other, you know. It was just between friends, you know, back, forth. And so I had a great time. Happy to win in the end at the last moment. So
We're loaded up.
we're all loaded up. And now
You see everything back there?
it is 2,000 some odd miles back home. And we're taking off in a Blazer. Ready to rock this thing. We're out. See you. All right, well, we are back in by at Ozark Dragway. We have driven this Blazer flawlessly for 2,000 plus miles. Drove all the way from Roswell, New Mexico, today in one shot. Here, gonna load it up, crash out, and just drive the rest of the way back to Michigan on the trailer. But could not be happier. This thing was just god darn perfect.